we'll go back to sharing my screen. All right. Calm the chaos. My life has felt like chaos, and I don't think I'm alone. So welcome to Calm the Chaos. And what we're going to talk about today is just a triple P approach to parenting during COVID-19, or being a caregiver during COVID-19, because we have a lot of these same things in the classroom that homeschooling moms are seeing at home. That's what I've changed my title to, work/homeschooler, work/teacher. All right, so we're going to give a brief overview of triple P because I think it's really important for you to understand all of the research that goes into this. I'm a big fan of research and evidence-based, and when I first started this training, and you might think this today too, this is just common sense stuff that you're telling me, lady. And that's what I thought sitting in my training. And then I said, okay, I'm going to do this, and I need to go home and I need to practice it. And I need to see that it works, because I can't go out and teach something that I don't believe in. So I came home and I started trying the strategies, and I saw some changes, some positive feedback from the changes that I made in my reactions and my toolbox that I was using with my children. And I thought, well, that it's new. Anytime you do something new, the newness will wear off, and then we'll go back to the same chaos that we were in before. But I am happy to say almost 5 years later, these strategies work. They work very consistently, and I'm very consistent in implementing them. The key to all of these strategies that I feel like Triple P presents to us and offers us is the intentionality of it. So being really intentional and thoughtful about what you are trying to accomplish and how you can get that compliance. So we're going to talk about parenting in the new normal, fears. I'm going to go through a tip sheet that Triple P offers about fears, keeping our everyday routines, family planning, and interesting activities. You'll be amazed at how providing interesting activities can curb behaviors. Okay, so let's talk about Triple P. So it was founded by Dr. Matt Saunders. I'm not sure if it's Sanders or Saunders. In Australia. It has more than 4 decades of international research and evidence behind it. And we continue, I have to give data every quarter. So every person, family that I meet with, I have to provide data about tons of things. So what they're looking for is, are these strategies working in different cultures, in different socioeconomic groups, and in different family structures? Because not every home is a mom and a dad and kids. A lot of homes are grandparents, and a lot of homes are aunts and uncles, and you got multiple caregivers. So it has been proven, which I like, it's proven to work for most families. So I like also that it's used in 22 different countries, and it's translated in 11 different languages. That lets you know that it does span the globe. I stole this from the Facebook machine, I have to be honest. And you guys maybe have seen it. I heard a lady say it today. I had to go to the dentist, and I heard her saying it. If you see my kids locked outside today, which hopefully nobody's doing it today on this rainy day, mind your own business, we're having a fire drill. So I think in this, I hate to call it chaos, but it has been very different. None of us have ever experienced anything like this. So it's been a struggle for a lot of reasons. And a lot of times we felt like this. A lot of times we felt like we're in a fire drill consistently. We're just constantly in this state of, I don't know what's going to happen and what's going to come next. And do I go back to work, or is my mom and dad going to catch this? So we have, as adults, a tremendous amount of these feelings. Now, what's going to happen next? So if we feel, we're grown adults, we have most of us have a great set of coping strategies. We've been able to practice that. In our social emotionally, we're developed. But think about our kiddos, these little people, that they're feeling all of these things too. They don't have a clue. I know that as a child, I feel something different, but I don't really know why I feel it. My coping strategies are nowhere near where the adults are. So they're probably feeling chaotic, scared, anxious. They're probably fearful too of what they don't know. When am I going to see my friends again outside of Zoom? When am I going to get to go back to school? Is mom going back to work? So there's a ton of strange feelings that aren't, just your typical everyday thing. And I think we feel these every day in some level. So with all these feelings, especially for our little people, and I don't understand these feelings, thus arrive our behaviors. And that's because I don't know what this is that I feel. And I want it outside of me, so I'm going to try to do something to get it out. I'm sorry, I talk with my hands. So if it looks like I'm coming at you at the screen, I'm just talking. All right. So let's talk a little bit about fears. And again, I do have a tip sheet for this, and I'd be happy to share it with you if you'd like to have it after the presentation. Just put something in the chat, and I'll make sure we get it to you. All right. So I titled this slide, I Ain't Scared, because a lot of us try to tell ourselves that, but we really are, because everything is unknown right now. So in young kiddos, just remember that fear, I do a lot of workshops on trauma too. So fear is different. It manifests in a lot of different ways. Reactions to the same situation are going to be different. What makes me afraid and how I respond to it is different from what makes Jamie afraid or what makes Jatan afraid and how they respond to it. Same thing with our kiddos. Like I said, I have 3. I've had totally different responses from every one of them. What is fear? So usually with young children, they are usually afraid of something bad happening. Something bad's going to happen, or I don't know what's going to happen. And then as they get older, those fears kind of change more to social fears. Am I going to be accepted? Do my friends still like me? Am I going to see them again? When am I going to see them again? So, and those older kids kind of think less about the bad thing happening or maybe physical harm. So some fears are learned through experiences, through previous experiences. So for example, if your kiddo was walking in in their neighborhood, and a dog came running at them, barking, and they were fearful, that could lead to them having a fear all of a sudden of dogs now, because that happened. That's what we call a trigger. So even if I was around a dog that I knew, I may still have some anxiety or some fear because of what happened with that one dog. I can't control that. That's a physical interaction inside my body that's happening. So these fears can come from previous experiences. So maybe a friend left school and didn't come back this year. My kids talk a lot about so-and-so's being homeschooled now. We don't see them anymore. Or a teacher went to a different school and we don't see her anymore. So this experience, this being quarantined and not being able to see the people that I'm used to seeing every day, could be a trigger to raise some of those fears from something that's happened before. Fear can also come from watching others. So this is a biggie for us as parents and as caregivers. Now, we are human. I have fears, you have fears, and they come out. The key is, I'm not saying that we can't have fears because we have them, but the key is working through them and coping with them and kind of doing that in an outward way. So we're not only helping ourselves, but we're setting an example for our kiddos about how to cope with things. We also wanted to talk about, sometimes we can accidentally reward a fear. So if it's a fear that we're not kind of trying to promote or prompt that child to work through and use coping strategies, then we can accidentally reward that fear with some attention, extra attention, and we kind of rob them of the opportunity to practice using new skills. So we all know that the only way that we're going to learn new skills or behaviors is by opportunities to practice. And I know at Partners, they're doing a lot of books. They're reading a lot of books and using that as a talking point. It's opportunities to practice feeling those things. So when I feel afraid, think about a time that you felt afraid. And even with our kiddos, okay, what made me feel better? So let's practice that. Avoidance, and one of mine this is how his behaviors are manifesting. Avoidance is a typical response too. So sometimes I just have to pretend like I'm just going to pretend like this isn't happening and maybe it'll go away. But again, we're not coping. We still have that fear, and it does have a physical reaction in our body. Okay, so let's talk about the strategies that Triple P offers for managing fear. So let's talk with our kids. Have a discussion with your child is the first strategy that they talked about. We want to be really understanding, and we want to encourage our kiddos. Hey, it's okay to talk about our fears. It's okay to be afraid. Okay. That's a real human emotion. And we want to really steer clear of, you shouldn't be afraid of this. They are, or I am. Just like sometimes the whole anger thing comes in there too. You shouldn't be angry about this. Well, anger is a real natural human emotion, and we all deal with that. So instead of you can't feel this, let's talk about how we can act when we do feel this so we can feel better. So let them know, of course, that you understand. You understand that they're frightened, and sometimes you're frightened, and maybe you can talk about some situations where you faced your fears and things that are similar to your child's situation. So maybe they can adapt or adopt some of those coping strategies to try to handle their fears. Setting a good example. So I touched on this before, but this is one of the core Triple P strategies is setting a good example. Again, we want to try to keep our fears under control, but I am a strong proponent of talking through when I'm afraid. I want to talk through how I feel and what I'm doing to make myself feel better, to teach children that it's okay to be afraid, and there are things that I can do to help myself feel better. So hopefully I'm teaching them coping skills. Now, when I'm working with parents of kids with behavior issues, I often tell them, create a situation where you can display this for them. So Triple P says to set a good example, but I think we need to go a step further and not only set a good example, but call their attention to it. So, hey, man, I'm really worried about Mama and Papa today because they're older and maybe Papa had a call I'm really worried today. So let's think about how I can feel better. Instead of refusing to go to work, because I saw refusal was one of the behaviors, the challenging behaviors that you guys are getting from kiddos, or non-compliance. So I'm just not going to do what anybody asked me to do. What can I do to help myself feel better? And talk through that. Just like with the anger piece, when I'm trying to coach a parent through teaching a child ways to express their anger, because behavior is a method of communication. I'm trying to tell you something, whether it's I'm scared or I'm anxious or I'm hungry or I'm sick or I can't do this. I'm trying to tell you something. So if you help me figure out what I'm trying to tell you, then we can work out a way of how I can express it in a better way. So again, we're not saying you can't feel this. We're just saying it's okay to feel this way, sweetheart, but we're just not going to not do what we're supposed to do. When you feel this way, let's practice some ways that you can cope with it so that you can move on with your day. We don't want it to be crippling. And sometimes fear really interferes with what we have to do. So that leads right into the next one, teaching your child coping strategies, or teaching your kiddos in your classroom coping strategies. This is a great way you want to engage them in this. So, hey, let's talk about ways we can help ourselves feel better, and give them a couple of examples, and then let them choose. Which one do you want to practice? Which one do you think will help you? So I'm going to give you a few examples, but there are many, 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 and I know you all have your own coping strategies, and especially with your own children, they're really good to use as an example for them, because chances are they may want to use those too. So breathing is one that Triple P talks a lot about. We use it in a lot of our, we have a level of Triple P that pinpoints controlling anger. And we use these coping strategies and a breathing exercise to help bring ourselves down. So when I breathe in, now I don't mean breathing from my chest, and when I teach this to kids, or when I talk about it with my kids, we often put our hand on our tummy, and I say, I want you, there's a balloon in your stomach, and I want you to fill it up with air. So they're really getting that deep, deep breath. And when I do that, everything in here feels different. So I don't feel that and I have a lot of anxiety. Although I teach and I do a lot of these, You still get anxiety. Most folks do. Norma doesn't, but most other folks still get anxiety. But when I did that breath, some of that anxiety and that pressure on my chest went away. So there's a physical change in my body when I practice breathing. Relaxation. This is one that kiddos really like. So I tell them, go floppy like a doll. Go floppy like a rag doll. Or I'll take a dishcloth or a towel. Go floppy like this. So you want them to, and you do it with them. You show them first. Again, we're setting a good example. Go floppy like a rag doll. And that relaxes all of their muscles. Again, a physical change in what's going on in their body. Very important. I also do one where and I know you guys have all done these because teachers are the masters of coping strategies and calm down strategies. But the one where you tighten your body from your toes all the way up. So we tighten from our toes all the way up, trying to hold everything inside, and then we let it go all at once. So you're coaching them through this, and you're doing it with them now. But once you teach them that strategy, and it's something that they like, they'll be able to do that on their own in a way that helps them calm down. Imagination. It's another strategy, a coping strategy that Triple P offers. And my husband actually used this with my son. He is afraid of the dark, and he's scared without sleeping in his room by himself. And I hadn't even talked to my husband about this, so I have to give him kudos. I was very proud of him because I said, what'd you tell him? So he came back and told me. So imagination is where we're just trying to distract our brain. And we don't realize how much control what we're thinking has over our bodies and how we feel inside. So distract from fear. So think about something pleasant. I know y'all have heard of that. Go to your happy place. Think of, and that's what he told my son. I want you to think of, where do you really like to go? What's your favorite place to go? And of course, he said the beach. Okay, I want you to picture the beach in your mind. And can you smell the salt? And can you hear the waves? Go there. And it helps you. It just tricks your brain, but it does help. Self-talk is another one where we control what's up here, helps control how we feel inside. So I call it stinking thinking. I don't know, you guys have probably heard it before, but when we have those negative thoughts up here, if we can switch them to a positive thought, we're more likely to feel good. Now, we also want to help our child develop that positive self-talk to themselves. So and we want them to write them down, because when they're in the midst of the moment, our brain has these little flaps right here. So this frontal lobe is our decision-making center, and it controls a whole lot up here. But when we get in that fear, the fight, flight, or freeze, this is that frontal lobe part. This closes. So this part of our brain, it just fight, flight, or freeze. And there's one more they've added to it. I can't remember what it was, but anyway. So it covers up this decision-making center. So I can't retrieve all these great ideas that I have when I'm in the midst of panic. So we want them to practice writing them down, and that also gives them an option to look at and say, oh, I'm going to try this one. I think that'll make me feel a lot better. So you're giving them some control of what's happening to themselves. We're wanting to teach them to become more self-aware. So the example I used was being afraid of a spider. This positive self-talk my example to my child is, it's just a spider. It can't hurt me. I am the boss of my body. Chill out and just be cool and relax. Now, those of you that have a huge fear of spiders, you're probably going, that ain't gonna work, lady. But if you would practice it and switch those thoughts in your brain, you would see that your body, the physical change that it would have in your body. All right, encourage your child to face their fears gradually. So what does that mean? Just like if you were going to teach them how to cook. When you first come in, you're going to give them full support, right? You're going to tell them every single step. And then the next time they come in to cook that same meal, you're probably going to leave off a few steps and see if they pick it up on their own. So you're given just enough support for them to accomplish what they need to do. So we want them to start to face those fears gradually. So the same young man that I was telling you about was afraid of the dark and afraid to sleep by himself. He's afraid to go back into his room and get anything, or go into his closet, or he has a bathroom back there. So we have really been practicing this, gradually facing our fears. So what I did, first it was full support. So I would go in the room, and then, okay, You can do this. You see that we went in the room and nothing happened. So then it was, I'm going to stand right here. And eventually now I can say, go to your room, turn on all the lights, it'll be fine. He just has to turn the lights on. And that's okay. If that's his coping strategy, that's okay. But we had to gradually face that. So doing little steps at a time. So you begin with that full support, and then you begin to reduce that support gradually. So then they are coping and facing them on their own. Remain calm when a child is scared. Now, it's hard. It's really hard to remain calm when they're afraid or when something's happened. But they look to us, of course, to see how to react and respond, whether it's a caregiver or a parent, classroom teacher or a parent. But if we get upset, obviously they're gonna escalate too. But also, and when I read this the first time in that tip sheet, I thought, well, that don't sound right. But after I read it a couple times, I understand what they're trying to say. So if we give a whole lot of comfort and a whole lot of reassurance, that child is not learning to cope with that fear on their own. We are robbing them, like I said earlier, we're robbing them of that opportunity to practice those coping skills. Praise your child for facing their fears. We're going to talk a lot about praise after we go through this tip sheet. But praising good behavior or praising good or desirable things has been one of the biggest game changers in my home. One of the simplest things for me to do, and I still do it to this day, to the point that my family makes fun of me. My dad's like, I think you've taken this praise thing a little too far, Tonya. You're even praising adults. I'm like, well, if you practice it, it becomes your normal way of life. But I've had so much success in just praising. So when they take that small, when you're doing that gradual introduction to these fears, and we're quarantined and we're getting ready to come out, we're in second phase, but then we're going to go back to school and things are going to be, we don't know what they're going to be like yet, but we are going to have several phases that we're going to move through during this. And this goes for anything. When they go from preschool to kindergarten, and when they go from primary school to middle school. So there's lots of places that we can use these strategies, not just during this quarantine. I lost my train of thought. I'm sorry. I wanted to say something else. Maybe it'll come back to me. Old age. All right. Encourage your child to try new things. So we're not going to want to stop them from encountering anything that they're afraid of. Again, if we stop them from seeing anything frightening, then we are robbing them of the opportunity to practice. Opportunity to practice is how we make new habits and how we form new habits. Help your child face things that they must do. There's a lot of impact in planning. So if you can prepare them, calmly and honestly telling them what to expect. So if they're afraid, we need to talk about it. If they're afraid about when they go back to school, or if they're afraid about when you go back to work, there's a lot of different things they're going to be fearful of during this quarantine. Talk to them about it. Talk to them about what to expect. Tell them exactly what's going to happen. One of my kiddos, my daughter, is terrified of shots. And our doctor's office happens to be in the IGA parking lot. I live in Mount Ola, so Cleveland. Now you know where I am. Now you know why my internet's bad, because there's nothing out here. But anyway, so every time we go to the IGA, she panics and thinks we're going to the doctor. Am I going to get a shot? I'm like, no, we're going to the grocery store. But when we do go for a shot, I'm very honest. I do not lie about it. This is what we're going to do. This is what you can expect. This is how we're going to handle it. Let's practice. So again, talking to them about, okay, this is what's going to happen. So what coping strategy do you think would help you the best? I would encourage you to have more than one, because sometimes that one don't work. Okay, let's do our backup. I ask her to choose 3. So if the first and the second don't, and usually out of 3, we can find something that helps us cope. And then again, afterwards, lots of praise and focusing on what we did well, because fears are natural. So they're going to be afraid. Talking to your child about dangerous situations. I think we've probably had a lot of opportunities to do this with going into stores and, all the new stuff that we've had to do, and wearing masks. And You know, we did a lot of discussion about this as a leadership team at Partners in Learning about kids that are going to be afraid of their teachers and masks. So we had to think about, okay, how are we going to fix this? So we talked about it. There was I think a video done and a social story done so that we can prepare that child for that situation. So when your child is facing a dangerous situation, if it's going back to school or if they have to go to the doctor or whatever it is that they're fearful of, talk to them about it and talk to them about, okay, this is what we're going to do. Or what do you think you can do? I like asking that question. What do you think we can do? So it kind of promotes those critical thinking skills, plus it gives me an opportunity to see where they are, where their thinking is. Get help from other children. So all you classroom teachers that are on here, no. Kids learn a lot from their peers, and they will learn quicker from their peers than they will from a caregiver or a parent. So if you can engage other children and get help from them, then that's usually a great tool to use to help your children manage their fear. And sometimes it's just in circle time having a conversation about, what are you afraid of? How do you handle that? Let's talk about it. And maybe you do a chart where you chart who uses what strategies. There's a ton of strategies there for kids to choose from when you've got it posted on your wall. So there's a lot of visual things that we can do, and it's mostly a lot about talking. Talk. And sometimes we steer away from talking about that because we want the kids to feel that, but we need to talk about it so we can talk about what will help them handle it. So it can take some time to overcome fear, especially if it's a fear that's been there for a really, really long time. It's going to take some time and opportunities to practice. So help them cope with those unpleasant feelings caused by fear. You want to encourage them to gradually conquer that fear, gradually face that fear. And then obviously if that fear becomes where it's interfering with their normal life. So and that can, we've heard a lot about mental health during these days. That can happen. Don't be afraid to seek professional help. Teachers, if you see that these fears are just paralyzing these kiddos, have a conversation with that parent. Hey, this is what I'm seeing. Are you seeing this at home? Do you think maybe we should make a referral for counseling? Because this is a very odd time. I mean, I've seen differences in myself. I've seen differences in my blood pressure, all kinds of things. So those are physical changes that I can't actually control. All right. I said this earlier. Behavior is a method of communication. We are wired to correct. We get more of what we pay attention to. And I know y'all, anybody that's been around Norma, that's one of her favorite sayings, but it's so true. And if we start thinking about that, we get more of what we pay attention to, and whatever we water grows. So water being the attention piece. Whatever we give all that attention to and water, we're going to get more of that. What we want to start doing is start listening to these behaviors because they are communicating something to us. What are you trying to tell me? So we want to help that child become more self-aware. What are you trying to tell me? What need are you trying to get met? Because we know that's what that behavior is telling us. And then once we help them figure out that answer, like I'd said earlier, then we can start helping them figure out it's okay for you to feel this way, but this is how we need to communicate it. Whether we have signs that we do, we have, you can go to that cozy corner and give me the thumbs up or give me a rub across your heart. So you all decide on how we're going to communicate that. We're going to communicate it in this way that's appropriate, as opposed to it's not appropriate to throw yourself down on the floor, or it's not appropriate to hit your friend. Let's talk about it. So when we help them become more self-aware, then they begin to learn how to advocate for what they need without acting out for supply. So, I've also heard, I think it's Lemon Lime Adventures is the lady. I watch a lot of her podcasts. But she said behavior, this undesirable behavior and this refusal to comply, sometimes it's just trying to advocate for what they need or to get their needs met. So if it's, I refuse to Zoom with my class, it may be because there's a fear of that. There's a fear of how to work it, or that they're going to look silly, or they're going to hear something. Kids have a lot of different fears. So when we understand that, and we understand that they're really just advocating for something that they need, Then we can help them figure out a way to meet that need in an appropriate way, or a way that's more desirable, I guess I should say, because appropriate is relative to, just like fear is relative. Okay, this is a great time during this quarantine to teach some really important life skills. And again, we're going to praise that behavior that we like so we get more of it. So I want you to think about you and your employer. Obviously, you get a paycheck for doing what you're supposed to do, which is a reward in itself. But when you go above and beyond, or you say you go out of your way to console an angry parent, and you've provided them what they need, and then you still went that extra mile, and your employer says, I really like how you handle that parent. You calm them down, and even after you had them calm, you still provided extra. Really like that you went above and beyond. That attention to that behavior will prompt you the next time you encounter an angry parent to go that extra mile. So you like that positive recognition. You like that interaction. Everything in our lives is based on relationship. How we learn, how we think about ourselves, our self-confidence, all of that. So if I am feeding that stuff that I like, then I'm going to get more of that. Now flip that. And if we're only giving attention, I don't know about y'all, but I'm just being honest and transparent. I've had a lot of stuff that I've had to pay attention to that was not desirable, being trapped in the house with homeschooling and not a lot of outlets. So there's been a lot that I've had to correct and pay attention to. We have to correct things, but we have to learn to balance where we're not only paying attention when we're correcting, but we're also paying attention to those good things. So what we teach them is my good stuff gets attention too. Hopefully we can give more attention to the good stuff, but that's not always the case. Now, when we give that attention, we have to be really specific. So Triple P calls that strategy descriptive praise, is the way they phrase it. So describe exactly what you want. Whatever you're really wanting repeated. So we're really quick to say thank you, awesome, good job. Okay, good job what? Good job walking away when your sister wouldn't answer you and you got angry. Good job that you came to me and told me that you were afraid and you didn't know what to do. Good job. Now let's talk about good job sharing that with me. Now let's talk about some ways we can handle it. So I'm really descriptive. Sometimes it's just as simple as they've asked permission for something. Thank you for asking before you went and got a snack out of the kitchen, because sometimes their snack consists of a candy bar and more than one, and that's not really a snack. Not one that I want them to have at 4 o'clock when we're going to have dinner at 6. So being descriptive about that praise. I like this one. Okay. Getting compliance sometimes is just as easy as changing how we ask. And this works on spouses as well, because I have even that descriptive praise piece. That'll work on adults. It works on children. You get more of what you pay attention to. And if I ask you in a different way, so if I say, and I'm going to read through a few of these, not all of them, because I know you all can read. I see you're having trouble getting the words out, instead of stop the whining. I see you're having trouble getting those words out. Take a deep breath, and then let's try to talk about this. Let's take a minute instead of hurry up. Let's just take a minute, okay? Let's look at today's schedule instead of, you know what to do. You know what you're supposed to do. You know you're supposed to do. Well, let's look at what we're going to do today. So again, and I love first then. I use it often. First then. So first we're going to do art, and then we can do science. Instead of, you're not going to play on your iPad if you don't do your art, or you're not going to get a snack if you don't do this. So just changing how we say something. And in my parenting classes with different families, I get a lot of pushback on this one, because I get a lot, I'm not going to tiptoe around my kids and change what I say. If I want them to do this, then I want them to do this. Well, I look at that differently, and some of you may share my view, and you may share an alternate view. If I can change how I say something, and I get them to do what I want them to do, I'm winning. So if it just takes me saying a few extra words, I'm winning, and so are they. What I want is for them to comply. So if I can change how I present or how I ask, and them do what I want them to do, I do that all day long. That's not tiptoeing around my kids. It's just changing how I say it and changing my tone sometimes. Sometimes even that makes a difference. All right, maintaining everyday routines. This was Triple P released a COVID-19. It was actually a handout for families, and I didn't take everything off of it because we would have been on here for 2 hours, and I'm a talker, as you could tell. So I just took a few points. So we'll go through these really quickly because I want to give you some time. I can't see my chat thing when I'm sharing my screen, so I apologize for that. But I will get to your questions. All right, maintaining everyday routines. So we all do better with structure. Even though kids fight it a lot. We all do better when we have some structure, especially when things are very stressful or they're uncertain. So as much as we can, we need to stick to our regular routines. As much as we can incorporate that. Now, we've had to introduce a ton of new stuff in our daily routines. To some places, you have to have your temperature taken. You have to wait outside the Walmart to walk in. Wait outside the food line. You can only go in one door and out another door. So we've had to make a lot of changes and transitions. When possible, involve your kiddos in establishing those new routines in your house. You may need to do some visuals. I find visuals very helpful. Most teachers do. Most educators find that very helpful. So that's probably not telling teachers anything that they don't already know. So this is an example of a timetable or a schedule. This is for an 11-year-old. So it's fairly easy just to kind of give them, you see she's got schoolwork, math, schoolwork, English. I would probably give a few more options there where I would say schoolwork here, schoolwork here. You have to have these 3 subjects done by lunchtime. You can pick which time you do them, depending on what child it is. Now, for a small child, I have also used like a dollar store clock, and you color code the clock. So when we're in red, it's a meal time. When we're in green, it's work time. When we're in yellow, it's playtime. So you can use color coded, and you just put that clock right beside your clock on the wall or under your clock on the wall. Mine doesn't have a place beside of it, so I put it under mine. But then they can read that schedule. You can also go even for even younger kids, and you just use a color. So I've used construction paper, and on that color of construction paper, they know red is play, green is eat, yellow is whatever it is, nap time, quiet time. So I use those colors, using colors because they can't tell time, obviously. I've also used picture schedules where they moved it, and I know a lot of children with special needs, we use those often for them, first in schedules, pictures. So you really want to personalize it for your child, but I would also involve them. The more you involve them in these things that you do to help them get through this time and trying to manage their time and have some sort of schedule, they're more likely to buy into it. Just like if your boss said, hey, I need this accomplished. How do you think we can do it? As opposed to them coming and saying, I need this done and this is how I want you to do it. You're more likely to buy into it when you have some input into it. Okay. Having a family plan. Love, love, love this strategy. Again, it's another core strategy for Triple P. So we want to have, and we've talked a lot about communication. I'm sorry, I'm burning up. We've talked a lot about communication. So having a family plan is just really talking about our expectations. So a lot of times as grown-ups, caregivers, parents, we just think they know what we expect. There's no way they're going to meet our expectations if we don't talk about what we expect and really explain what that means. So not knowing prevents them from meeting that. And then it also can foster anxiety, and then when they don't meet it and they're in trouble, again, all of those feelings come up which spark behaviors. So with a family plan during these times, what we're really looking to accomplish is to calm those fears and those anxieties. So it gives them a known, because we have so many unknowns right now. So talk about how things are going to be different. How are things different? Going to be different for our family for a little bit. And then when we start to transition, you're going to need to go back and revise that. So now we're going to transition into this. Let's talk about what that's going to look like. So again, it's just preparing. Does it take more time? Yes. But when you prepare and you take that time, then your outcome is 10 times better. You're probably going to have to revisit this as things change. You're going to want to, and you're going to want to have that conversation with them. Hey, what do you think's working well? What do you think maybe we could do better or different? So engage them in that problem solving of how to get their needs met. Thank you. There's also, I'm sorry, there's also, I think too, with us being stuck inside, we I don't want to say we get depressed, but we want to assist them with feeling really positive about themselves. So maybe little deeds that you all can do as a family that promotes more of a positive outlook, because we want to really make sure we're taking care of that mental health. So what can we do? Who can we call? Is there somebody we can send a letter to? Things that we can do to give back that's going to help us. Oh, I put that on there, I'm sorry. So draw or write a thank you note to a first responder, or deliver or mail a picture to an elderly shut-in. So things that can help us with those positive feelings can also help curb behaviors. Interesting activities. My favorite strategy to use to curb behaviors. And it's very powerful. So how often do we hear this? I'm bored. I mean, I hate to hear it. Hate to hear it. I mean, I'm sure you all have said, there's a ton of stuff in here to do. So when children are busy and engaged, they're less likely to misbehave. So sometimes, even though there's tons of stuff for them to choose from, they still sometimes they need you to direct their play. So I encourage you to think about some interesting activities and have yourself a list of some interesting activities that we don't do all the time that can help them engage and be engaged, because they're not going to think of it all the time. I find if my kids are arguing a lot, which, like what I told you before we started, I gave them some options of some things that they can do that we don't always get to do. It was interesting activities for them because I needed them to behave during this time. But if they're starting to argue more or the fighting's getting in there, if I step in and kind of direct their play, okay, would you like to do this or this? Or let's go look at our list. I mean, I like to have a list of things they can choose from. And I should have pointed that out on that activity schedule. There was one on that 11-year-old schedule that he could choose from the interesting activity list of what to do during his free time. Sometimes free time needs to be structured for a lot of our children. But just directing them to something they can engage in, a lot of times changes that trajectory that they're on when they're headed down that wrong path. So I say develop a list of 20 or more activities that they can choose from. I would not place all 20 up there to begin with. You want to be able to roll them out. So to it is keeping your activities novel. So it's not something that they get to do all the time, because you want it to be fun. You want it to be engaging. I am, for example, for going out to eat, or if we have to go to the doctor, I have what I call a restaurant bag. It's in the back of my car. It only comes out if we're going to a restaurant or if we're going to the doctor's office. That's the only time they get to play with those toys. So they're very interested in playing with them. And I have 3 different kids, 3 different levels, and I even have stuff in there for the teenager, believe it or not. Now, he's kind of over that now, but sometimes he don't want to play on his phone, thank you, Jesus. And he will do some of the activities with us as a family. So it's a good idea. Sorry, can you check him out, please? It's a good idea to, it's a good idea to have some things that are physical and some things that are stationary. Remember to include some sensory stuff for your kiddos. They may need that sensory stimulation also. Movement breaks, which all schools are doing it. Movement breaks and calm down activities help kids receive that input that they need to find their just right energy level before they begin their schoolwork or before they begin tasks that require a lot of focus. All right, so I'm bored, what can I do? These are just a few examples that I wrote down, and I pulled some from the Triple P workbook that I use with my families. Younger children, drawing, building an obstacle course, playing hide and seek. Older children, cooking, doing an online exercise program, listening to music or a podcast. I send my teenager out a lot. Go play some basketball. Go shoot some hoops. That is a calm down activity for him. Board games and puzzles, we use those a lot. And projects that you and your child can do together. During this quarantine time, I have found that to be a huge enrichment for my family. I mean, we're always so busy. But now that we have to stay at home, we can't go anywhere. This is a great time to do some of those projects. I've been able to teach them a lot of stuff, how to work hard. I mean, I worked them like workhorses one day. We put out a trailer load full of mulch in the sun, but it was a great day. And when they finished, the sense of accomplishment and the self-esteem that it builds is amazing. So I want you to try to think, I was going to do a poll, but I'm running out of time, to think of just five, start with 5, and then you can just keep adding to them. So these are some that are on my list. We do dance parties sometimes, and you can do that with your phone. You can do it with YouTube on your computer, whatever. Play-Doh is novel at my house. It does not come out often, but I swear when I bring it out, they will sit for 45 minutes. That's what I should have done today, was got the Play-Doh out. They will sit for 45 minutes and play with Play-Doh. Scavenger hunt. Gosh, I need to somehow be able to share my presentation with you. This is the link for different scavenger hunts that you can print, or I don't even print them. Sometimes I just look them up and I write them down. Kids really like scavenger hunts. I like doing them, and it's fun to do outside too. Racetrack with tape or chalk, really good for little kids, and that's something that we do too. We do a lot of sidewalk chalk. Sidewalk chalk's fun, and we don't get it out all the time because it's messy. Building a fort, my kids love to build forts, or somewhere that they can go in and read their book, do their studies. I've even let them sit and do their stuff on their iPads that they need to do for school in the fort that they build. Pinterest, of course, is all of our best friends in the education world. Great place to find these things. But again, we don't do these all the time. So the novelty is what keeps the kids engaged. Slime is another one that I don't like slime, but my kids love it. But it only comes out occasionally. But when it comes out, they are very engaged. So what we're trying to do, or what I try to do with my list, is I'm trying to promote some independent play. So I have some options for independent play, but I also have some options for us to do together. And if I'm busy and I can't engage in those that we're going to do together, then I'm not going to give those as an option. I can control that completely. All right. I thought I was at question time. Good. All right. I'm going to stop sharing my screen so I can see you all. Oh, good. I didn't miss any questions. And we didn't get any new folks. Wonderful. So everybody's allowed to talk. All right. So are there any questions? I went really fast. I'm sorry. Any questions, anything that you'd like for me to talk about? You'll have to unmute yourself because I think everybody's muted. Or do I have to do it? Let me see. I'll just unmute everybody, which I think gives you the option. No questions? I was just that thorough, right? Yeah, right.
Yeah, you were.
Yeah, and quick. Okay, one thing I'm supposed to do before I let you go, there's going to be a drawing for a gift card for those who attended the entire training, and you'll get an email. They'll draw a winner, and you'll get an email. All right. Thank y'all so much for attending and for listening, and I hope you walk away with just a few strategies that you can use. If I were to pick any that I think is the most effective, it's praise. Praise, it's just, it has changed. Not only has it changed the climate in my house, which I like, it's changed how I feel. So instead of I get to say good things. So I get to pay attention to those good things, and I feel good about that, as opposed to saying, don't do that, or I ask you not to do that. I can say what you're doing right. And the beauty about having multiples and being in a classroom is if you acknowledge one, you're darn skimpy, then others are going to come right along because they want that attention too. Just got to make sure you give it to them.
Well, we say at least 5 to 1 bad one.
Yes, that's a good, not analogy. What am I trying to think of? Ratio. 5 positives to that 1 negative. It is really hard to balance that with particular children, because sometimes
You have to kind of.
you really got to look. Yeah. I'm sorry. Did I interrupt you, Kelly?
The pudding on the wall. It's really lovely.
Yeah. I think you're trying to do some art there. So sometimes you have to dig. That's right. But everybody has something good that you can praise. And then the more you practice that, you really get creative, because with my teenager, I still use these strategies with him. And I have teen strategies too. So if anybody needs some help in that area, please let me know, because I am right in the midst of that mud right now. But I mean, sometimes I really have to dig. But hey, if it's just, I'm so grateful that you got up and brushed your teeth. Thank you so much. That's praise, because normally we don't get that. You know, I mean, it's just, it's so powerful. And it's such a simple, easy thing to do. And I teach at Catawba, and I tell a lot of my teachers there when we have discussions about behaviors and those types of things, that relationship, if I have a relationship with you and I like you, or I think you like me, just like with my boss, I am way more willing to want to please you than if I don't feel a connection to you. So start there with building those really strong connections. That's about you. That's not about parenting in the quarantine. Sorry. Thank you all. If there's no more questions, I'm going to end the recording. Let me go ahead and stop.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.